September 1st, 1917. September morn.
Where were you born?
Tulsa.
Tulsa, Oklahoma. Is that where you live or grew up?
No, I was there just off and on. I grew up in hotels till I was
Okay.
10 with my... The longest she was married to my father. We moved about every 6 weeks, and you don't bother about having... Once in a while we'd get a house if we thought there was a chance of staying there for a while, but never very long. Then we went back to living in hotels again.
Okay.
And I always called them my old men in the lobby. And I would, if I ever misbehaved, one of them would come up and say, "Honey, we're having a meeting tonight at, up in the lobby there where we meet, and we got your seat all ready for you, and we're looking forward to you being there." So over there, I'd always go up that night, and they would all very carefully tell me why you didn't do certain things, and what it would do to other people, how it would affect them. And so you must never do this, just because it bothers people, but it's nothing important, but you just don't want to hurt people's feelings, that sort of thing. And
So who were they?
my old men in the lobby, as I called them.
Oh.
They must have been in their 20s or 30s, but to me, they were... And there'd always be enough of them moving with us, so I always had some that I knew. The bellhops, everybody was always friendly, and I ate in the kitchen as much as I could because I always got the top foods there. There they gave me what I wanted to eat.
Mm-hmm.
A little of this and a little of that was always real good. Edith had divorced Frank finally when I told her she would. And I stood up there, I remember I was 10 years old, and I said, "You are a damn fool for putting up with it." And she said, "I'll show you who's a damn fool around here." And she started grabbing up suitcases and emptying out drawers, and went down to the lobby, and she drugged me down to the lobby, and my old men in the lobby were there, and they thought, oh, Jean's acting up again, that they stood around. Later on in life, I'd meet them and they'd tell me what had happened. And my mother said, "Anybody here going to Tulsa? We need a ride. I'm going to divorce Frank, and we need to get out of here." And one man was going, but he had a rumble seat. Do you know what a rumble seat is? That's the back opened up. Now it's in a convertible. It's not a convertible, a fancy one where there's just front seat, and then there's back. The back used to open up, and you could have 2 people could sit back there. But I sat back there because only 2 could sit in the front seat. And we went to Tulsa for Pampa, and I know I was so happy to get out of that mess. And then in Brownsville, Laura and Knight lived there, had just moved there, and Tip, her new husband, Edith's new husband.
Oh, Edith.
My new father. I didn't like him, and he was supercilious. Kids, he had never been around kids. He just wasn't a kid person.
What did he do?
And I throw these wonderful temper tantrums. I mean, I'd study on how to do it. I could throw the best tantrum that you've ever seen. Screaming and hollering and going to kill myself and blah. Oh, it was tremendous. And it'd scare the hell out of my mother. And she'd give me anything I wanted just to shut me up. And Tip and I were there alone one day. And he saw me clouding up for one. And he started one. And my mother had a vase that was her pride and joy. She carried it with her everywhere. It was very expensive. And he went over and he picked that vase up and he said, blah, 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 bad words. And he threw that down on the floor and jumped up and down on it and broke it to smithereens. I couldn't stand that. That was the worst thing I'd ever seen in my life. And you know, I loved that man from that day on. He was my hero from then on. Strange what will attract a child. Well, I was 12 by then, so I just adored the ground Tip walked on. From now, he could do nothing wrong from then on.
Did you throw any more temper tantrums?
Oh no. Oh no, oh no. He didn't threaten me at all. He just threw a temper tantrum. The likes of which I had never I wouldn't have broken my mother's vase for anything. That was her most valued possession. So we lived there for 3 years. 3 years, I guess. 2 years. And I was living a very normal life for the first time in my life. Junior high school, then I went a year at high school there. And that was my only really normal period of my life, normal to other people. But I came up here to college, here to...
Okay. And you lived by yourself here?
No, I lived in the dormitory.
Well, I mean...
They had a dormitory, and they had one other building that was the post office and where the lunches... You ate lunch and all that stuff in just one building. And they had one building for a library. And then there was one building for teaching. Everything else had big signs on it. Site for this and site for that. It was a very new college. And that was fun. I went one semester and then I went, they were in, by then they were in Monroe.
So what happened in Monroe?
That's where Delta Airlines started.
Oh.
And he was the first Delta pilot.
Okay.
And so they were living there, and I went home after Christmas to the semester holidays. And I thought, I like this place a whole lot better than I did school, so I just said, I'm not going to go back to school. And I said, okay.
How long were you at SMU?
It was just one semester.
One semester.
And then I had a ball there, and then I met Spot that summer.
Tell me how y'all met, you and Spot.
Oh, well, I was having a party, and
this was
one of the
in
boys,
Monroe?
one of the boys that was invited, told Spot to come along because Jean it's all right to bring guests because she always has good parties. So, and coming down the steps, all of a sudden I just backed up and sat down on the steps and looked around, and I saw him, and it was like a shot. He'd been hit or something. And about that time he looked up and he got the same thing. It was weird. And I just sat on the steps for a while, and he just was on the other side of the room staring. And finally the kid that had brought him made him come on over and made me come on down and introduced us. So, but it was
Thunderbolt.
Thunderbolt is right.
How'd you meet him?
They were transferred to, Tip was transferred to Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay.
And at the airport, ready to leave to go to school at Agnes Scott in
Atlanta.
And I was all packed and ready to go, and they were going to follow me. They were going to move next month, but I got in school over there. So, but at the airport, and Spot showed up with his mother in the airport, in the lobby, with all the people around there. She got down on her knees. Oh, please marry my son because he's going to kill himself if you don't marry him. I mean, at the top of her lungs. I was so humiliated. I'd do anything to shut her up. And I said, okay. So we took off and went down and got married. on the way down, stopped at a little one-horse town and went in because they had a
Chapel.
office building. In there you could marry you.
Okay.
And so I went down and I went to school there the first year. And then he needed one more year to graduate. And so we were short on money, so I went to work in a jewelry store, and I made $22 a week, and that was high dollars. That paid for our rent and our groceries. $22 a week.
What was Spot doing at the time?
Going to school.
Oh, okay.
And then he got a job. We knew the mayor, the governor. He knew the governor real well, and so did I. He was from Monroe, basically, and I can't remember his name. But he got Spot a job. All he had to do was go up once a month and collect his salary. One of those kind of jobs.
Government job.
Government job. And between that, I mean, we were doing fine.
Your first child?
Lynn. And
Okay.
she, you can tell from her picture, she was a raving beauty.
Were you surprised about the finding out
What?
that you're pregnant? Was it planned?
Yeah, I was shocked.
You were shocked?
Yeah, I wasn't expecting it. She was a darling. She was beautiful, and she was sweet, and she was good, and everything was just wonderful.
So 2 years later, you got Gail.
Yeah. And I know that we were there for a while because Gail was beginning to walk. And it snowed one time. And I've got a picture someplace of Lynn and Gail out in the snow, eating the snow off their hands. They'd hold it up and get some snow on it, and then they'd eat it. So I've got a picture of that someplace.
Okay.
Then the war broke out. He got a job as second lieutenant in the Army. And he came in and he was so excited. He was dancing. And he was just going around in circles, just circling me, making me read this thing. So we packed up and headed. I can't go through all the towns because we lived in 13 different houses. I don't think we lived in 13 towns, but 13. We had 13 moves in the 3 years we were traveling before he went overseas, and he went over as a battalion commander. Then they had him going up this mountain, and they said, now there's nothing to worry about because the war hadn't started on this side of the mountain, it's on the other side of the mountain. And anyway, the war had started on his side of the mountain, and they killed off his whole battalion. There were 10 of them rescued. For so long, they couldn't find him.
Uh-huh.
They were in the process of cleaning him up because he was caked in mud, and they had taken his dog tag and everything off. And then they got word they had to get him out get everybody out of the hospital and to the train station. So they took him nude, and he didn't have his dog tag, and he was unconscious, of course. And that was in December, and I was going crazy trying to locate him because I knew he'd been shot, and I knew the battalion was gone.
The way you found out he had been injured was you were watching a movie and the movie tone news. Could you tell me about that?
Yeah. Well, it was, they were unloading planes full of bodies, people that were, and they seriously injured, and he had very distinguished features. You could always spot him in a crowd. no problem. And I saw him carrying him, and I went rushing to tell him where I'd seen him, but they couldn't find any trace of him from that either, so he just had gotten lost. But he finally woke up and knew who he was, and they shipped him home to Seattle. Tony was born while we were living in this new house, and then we decided we had to move it. I wanted to get the birth over with first.
So you moved to Dallas. Where did you live?
It was a nice house. It was 7 big rooms and big lot. And so we decided we would put a swimming pool back in the back because we were on a creek, and it would be easy to drain it and all that sort of stuff. And then Tony had 2 friends living on the same block. That was a long block, real long block, so we didn't need to worry about them playing out in the street because they were all on the same block, you know. And he had 2 boyfriends that lived in the block, and one girl that lived on down the other side. And they were all doing all kinds of things that children do. I had a tree house, and they were up in that. And anytime the girls would have a party, they would be up there pouring water down on the guests as they walked by, and or else they were peeing on them. Sometimes they did that too. The boys did. That was fun. Lynn got married while we were living there. She'd gone to college,
Mm-hmm.
and she met him in LSU. And they had quite a time too. And so he moved up, and he was going to work for Spot.
Okay.
And we were crazy about him, thought he was a wonderful kid. And Lynn was happy, and Gail was still too young for that at that time. We decided finally we wanted to get it out to, it was getting just too close to town because it was right downtown practically.
Came out to Farmer's Branch, bought the house on Tanglewood.
Built it.
Or built it.
Had
Can you
2
tell
lots.
me something about that?
Had 2 lots. And there had been a river running through it 2 ways, and that they forked right in the backyard. And they'd filled in one of them, and we decided we wanted to redo that thing and put it back, and we made a big, I don't know what you call it, just we bought a bunch of big, beautiful rocks and things, and put it in and made a garden down below where the creek used to be. And it is that's where Gail was married. At the wedding, I gotta tell this, we had off the top, people were sitting all the way around, 300 people sitting around the top of the rockery.
Mm-hmm.
And the lights went out. And the only one that knew how to fix them was the groom. So the wedding had to be everybody sitting around in the dark. And we had an orchestra was going to play for after the wedding, and they were sitting up there laughing their heads off at everything. They thought I'm sure it was the funniest thing they'd ever seen, everything that was happening. And then it was so interesting to everybody, we never could get them to go home. It lasted, I think, till about 2 o'clock in the morning. And Gail and her new husband didn't want to leave, but I said, well, honey, you all are going to have to leave, so maybe they'll go home because, they could be here all night with all this that's going on. They don't want to miss out on anything. And it was, one thing after another. It's a pretty wild night.
Talk about Tony growing up. And
Well, he was always the leader of the pack. I mean, he would be sitting upstairs trying to think of what to do next, and there might be 5 or 6 kids sitting downstairs waiting for him to decide what they were going to do next. And that was Tony all the way through. And he didn't like being the leader of the pack, but there's something about him that made it happen. And he had all kinds of potentials.
talk about his music.
Well, it's been interesting to watch it develop through the years. And then when he went over to France one time, he was
You mean Spain?
hanging over the bridge one day watching the little houseboats go under. And this one went under that had music he had never heard before, and he followed it up till it docked. Anyway, he said, "I don't know what you're playing, but I've got to know." And they were gypsies.
Django or Gypsy? Yeah.
Gypsy jazz is
Yeah.
what they were playing. And they were a flock of gypsies that lived on the houseboat. And they just went around, and playing. And he stayed with them for 3 weeks, and they wouldn't let him give them a dime. And he was going down to some musical thing down on into France. And he made the last part of it, but he missed the whole first part because he was staying up there with the gypsies. And to this day, when they come over here, they always have him come play open and close their whole thing for them. So, but that's where he got his gypsy jazz from.
Yes. Tell me about your spiritual life.
Well, as a child, of course, there was no spiritual life from my family, but I started going to different churches, just looking, searching. I was hungry. I'm still hungry, trying to find where I fit in. And I think everybody probably wants to know that, but I kept searching and searching and searching, and nothing ever appeared. And now, somehow, that is fulfilled in me, the why of it. I don't know, and I don't really care why anymore. I go out here to the one little service they have once a week at night, and they have different pastors, and they're not allowed to say, "This is the only church that you can go to. This is the only one that's right," and all the rest of the churches are false. Well, I don't believe that. I think God has started everything, every religion. The ones we approve of and the ones we don't approve of, and the ones we don't approve of, we'd have no idea what was going on when he started it. That man changed, because man changes, changing every day. Look what they're doing to the Catholic Church now. You mustn't have anything to do with Christmas. You mustn't tell your children about Santa Claus. Oh, so what harm did it do? It made people happy. Sure, it confused them maybe, but they're old enough to grow out of it. Anyway, I'm on my high horse when I got started talking on that.
If you could sum up your life in one word, what would that word be?
One word?
Yeah.
Investigation.
Why that?
Because I've always been curious and had to find out why of everything, and was a real brat, I'm sure, with everybody, because I wanted to know, why do you do this, why do you do that, and I still do.
Mm-hmm.
It's none of my damn business, I know, but I still want to know why.